Today we're looking at this Polish guide that claims you can get to English fluency in just 20 minutes a day.
20 minutes, zieni dubi gushi.
Right, but like, does it actually work?
Oh, that's what we're here to figure out. Okay, so tell me, like, what jumped out at you when you first looked at this guide? Well, the thing that really struck me was how much it focuses on having a structured daily routine.
Ooh, interesting. So like a workout, but for English.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know how they say consistency is key for working out?
Yeah.
Well, this guide is basically saying the same thing applies to learning English.
Okay, I like that. So this guide claims that if we follow this 20-minute routine, we'll see noticeable improvements in our speaking, like confidence and how clearly we speak within weeks.
Yep, that's the big promise.
Okay, that's a bold claim.
It is.
So spill the tea. What's the secret sauce?
All right, well, the guide starts off with something that might surprise you.
Ooh, I love surprises.
It says you got to warm up your mouth for speaking.
What? Hold on, like warm up our mouths.
Yep, just like singers warm up their vocal cords.
I've never heard of that for speaking. Like, what does that even mean?
So basically, it's all about prepping your brain and what are called your articulators.
Articulators, what are those?
Yeah, it's kind of a fancy word. Basically, it's all the stuff you use to make words, like your tongue and lips, things like that. So by taking a few minutes to warm up those muscles, you're getting them ready to make those English sounds, more clearly and accurately.
Okay, I've never thought about it like that before. What kind of warm-up exercises does the guide recommend?
Well, they recommend a couple of pretty simple but effective techniques.
Okay.
The first one is to just read a short English passage out loud.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. It could be anything, like a news headline or even just a quote from your favorite book.
I see.
The key here is to really focus on pronouncing each word clearly and deliberately, almost like you're exaggerating the sounds.
Okay, so if I were to read a headline out loud like, "Scientists discover new planet with potential for life," I would read it super slow and carefully.
Yeah, exactly. Paying attention to each sound and, not rushing through it.
Gotcha.
And if you come across a word that's kind of tricky to say, like potential, don't just mumble through it,
Yeah.
Take a moment to break it down syllable by syllable, potential, and practice saying it correctly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. What's the other warm-up technique?
So this one is all about tackling those infamous English sounds that always seem to trip people up.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
Words that look almost the same but sound completely different.
Oh, like thought, though, through and thorough.
Exactly. So you'd spend a few minutes practicing these tricky words. It's like a workout for your mouth to fine-tune your pronunciation and get those subtle differences down.
Yeah, I definitely need to work on those. But I'm curious, why is this warm-up step so important? Why does it matter?
Well, imagine trying to run a marathon without stretching first.
Oh, you'd be so sore.
Right, you probably pull a muscle or something.
Totally.
It's kind of the same idea with speaking. By warming up your mouth and brain, you're basically setting yourself up for success in, the rest of your practice. It helps prevent you from stumbling, makes it less frustrating, and allows you to focus on, speaking fluently and expressively instead of struggling with how to say the words. So those first 3 minutes are like an investment in making the rest of your practice way better.
Okay, I'm convinced. Warm up complete. So what's next on our English workout plan?
Time to hit the vocabulary gym.
Ooh, I like it.
This guide actually dedicates the next 5 minutes to building up a strong vocabulary.
Okay.
Which is essential for fluency, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's think of words as the building blocks of language. You need a solid foundation of words to create sentences that actually mean something and to really express yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I gotta say, the number of words in the English language is kind of intimidating. Where do you even begin?
I know, right? It can feel super overwhelming. But this guide, it actually takes a really manageable approach. So instead of trying to learn tons of words all at once, it suggests learning just 5 new words each day.
5 words a day. That actually doesn't sound too bad.
Right. And think about it. 5 words a day adds up to 150 new words a month.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
And that's almost 2,000 new words in a year.
Okay, you've convinced me. 5 words a day definitely sounds doable. But how do we make sure we actually remember them?
That's the key, right? The guide emphasizes a few techniques that are really helpful for making those words stick.
Okay, tell me more.
Okay, so first, don't just read those words silently in your head,
Yeah.
Say them out loud. This helps you internalize the pronunciation and train your mouth to actually make those sounds.
So if I'm learning the word exquisite, I'd say it out loud a few times. Exquisite.
Exactly. You're like introducing those words to your vocal cords. And then to really like cement those words in your memory, use them in sentences.
So, like, I wouldn't just memorize the word exquisite in isolation.
Right.
I'd try to actually use it in a sentence.
Yep.
So I could say something like, the chef created an exquisite dessert with layers of chocolate and raspberry.
Perfect. You're putting that word into action, like making it your own. And if you can, write those sentences down too.
Ooh, so like actually writing it out help.
It really does. The physical act of writing helps reinforce the memory, and it creates like a visual record that you can go back and look at.
Okay, got it. So we've learned our 5 new words, said them out loud, used them in sentences, and written them down. What's next?
Okay, so this is a step that a lot of language learners skip, but it's super important. You got to review the words you learned in the previous days. So before you move on to like a brand new vocabulary, take a few minutes to go back and revisit those words.
So it's like we're not just learning new words and then forgetting them.
Exactly. This consistent review helps prevent you from forgetting and make sure that those words become like a permanent part of your vocabulary.
It's like revisiting those gym exercises you learned last week, just to make sure you still remember the right form.
Yes. Consistency is key, both in fitness and language learning.
So why is this review step so important?
Imagine you're building a house, but you keep forgetting to lay some of the bricks.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
Right. You'd probably end up with some pretty unstable walls. It's the same with vocabulary. Regular review makes sure that your foundation is solid and that you can like confidently build on top of it. Without this step, you risk forgetting those words and having to start all over again. So those 5 minutes of vocabulary practice are an investment in the long-term growth of your English skills.
Okay, we've warmed up our mouths and we've expanded our vocabulary. What's the next step in this fluency building routine?
Okay, so now it's time to like really tune in to the sounds of English.
Okay.
This next part is all about listening practice. And like the guide actually spends a good 5 minutes on it, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, yeah. I feel like listening is often overlooked when people are learning a language.
Yeah, it's super important though. It's actually key for fluency.
But honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm just hearing words, but not really like absorbing them, you know?
Right, yeah, I get that.
How do we make those listening minutes really count? Like, what's the secret?
Well, this guide actually makes a good point about that. It basically says that we shouldn't be aiming for like 100% comprehension right from the start. You know, it's more about getting used to the rhythm of English, like how it flows, training your ears to like pick up on those patterns, intonation, and just how native speakers naturally connect words and phrases.
I see. So it's about immersing ourselves in the sounds of English, even if we don't understand every single word.
Exactly. And a good way to do this is to just listen to short, level appropriate audio or video clips, you know? Think like those YouTube videos that are made for English learners or podcasts on topics that you're like actually interested in.
Yeah.
Even like news snippets or audiobooks for beginners, things like that. The important thing is to choose content that's, engaging and not too difficult for your current level.
Okay, so instead of trying to decipher a Shakespeare play, I could start with something more accessible, like a TED Talk with clear subtitles.
Yeah, exactly. Start with something you can easily digest and then gradually work your way up to more challenging material as you improve.
I like it.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
The guide recommends a technique called shadowing.
Shadowing. What's that?
It's this really cool technique where you listen to a sentence and then you immediately repeat it out loud, trying to perfectly mimic the speaker's pronunciation, their intonation, their rhythm, everything.
So if the speaker says learning a new language can be challenging, but incredibly rewarding, I would try to repeat it exactly as they said it, like even the pauses.
Yeah, exactly. And pay attention to their pacing and how they emphasize certain words. It's like, doing a vocal workout. It helps train your ears and your mouth to work together seamlessly.
Okay, that sounds challenging but fun.
It is. And as you're practicing, pay attention to any new words or phrases that come up. Jot those down for later so you can study them. It's a great way to naturally expand your vocabulary.
Okay, cool. This sounds like a great way to really get a feel for how English is spoken. But I got to be honest, sometimes when I'm listening, I just feel completely lost.
Oh, yeah, I know that feeling.
And it can be so discouraging.
Yeah, I totally get it. But remember, those moments are totally normal, especially when you're just starting out.
Yeah, that's true.
And keep in mind that the goal isn't to immediately understand every single word. It's more about training your ears to become more attuned to the sounds and the patterns of English.
It's like learning a new musical instrument, you know? Like at first, all you hear are just random notes.
Yeah.
But then as you practice more, you start to recognize the melodies, the harmonies, things like that. Language is kind of the same. The more you listen, the easier it becomes to like pick up on the nuances and, decipher what's being said.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
So yeah, don't get too discouraged if you don't understand everything right away. Just keep practicing.
So why is this listening practice so crucial for like becoming fluent? Why is it so important?
So think about it. When you listen to native speakers, you're not just absorbing their vocabulary and grammar,
Yeah.
You're also picking up on their pronunciation, their intonation, their rhythm, like the natural flow of the language.
It's like you're getting the whole package.
Exactly. And like all those elements, they contribute to fluency. They make your spoken English sound more natural and confident.
Gotcha. So by dedicating those 5 minutes to actively listening, you're like immersing yourself in the language, You're training your brain to process English more effectively.
Okay, makes sense. So we've warmed up, we've expanded our vocabulary, we've trained our ears. What's next in our fluency workout plan?
Okay, get ready for this one. It's time to find your voice.
My voice.
Literally.
Oh, okay.
The guide dedicates a good 5 minutes to, wait for it, talking to yourself.
Wait, hold on. Talk to ourselves. Isn't that, a little weird?
I know it sounds a little strange at first, but it's actually super effective.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like, think of it as creating this judgment-free zone where you can just practice speaking English without worrying about, making mistakes or what other people think.
I like that.
It's all about getting comfortable, expressing yourself in English, finding your own rhythm, and just like building up that fluency.
So should we just start like rambling in English about whatever comes to mind?
Pretty much, like describe your day, share your thoughts and feelings, maybe even narrate what you're doing as you're doing it.
Ooh, okay.
It's like creating your own personal English commentary track for your life.
Okay, so like if I was making dinner, I could just start saying things out loud like, I'm chopping the vegetables now. I need to be careful not to cut myself. I wonder if I have enough spices.
Exactly. You got it. And here's a pro tip. Try to actively use those new vocabulary words you've been learning in your self-talk. It's a great way to like solidify them in your memory and really make them a part of your natural speaking.
Okay, so like if I learned the word scrumptious earlier, I could say something like, this dinner smells absolutely scrumptious.
Perfect. You're putting that word to work, making it your own.
I like it.
And there's another powerful technique the guide suggests. Ready for this?
What is it?
Record yourself speaking.
Oh, no, I don't know about that. I hate hearing my own voice.
I know. It can be a little cringy, but trust me, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
It lets you like hear how you actually sound,
Yeah. It's a great way to pick up on any pronunciation issues, areas where you might be stumbling, or, even just like patterns of hesitation. It's like having your own personal language coach giving you feedback, but for free.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. I'm willing to try it. So I'd record myself talking for like a few minutes and then listen back and like analyze my performance.
Exactly. Ask yourself, like, am I speaking too fast, too slow? Are there any words I'm mispronouncing? Do I sound confident? Things like that.
Yeah.
By identifying the areas where you need to improve, you can really target your practice and like make significant progress.
That makes a lot of sense. So why is talking to ourselves so beneficial for fluency? Why does it work?
Well, it all comes down to like building confidence and fluency.
Okay.
When you talk to yourself, you're creating the safe space to like experiment with the language, to try out those new words and phrases, and just get comfortable with the flow of English without feeling like you're being judged, you know?
It's like rehearsing for a play. The more you practice your lines, the more confident and natural you'll be when it's time to actually perform in front of an audience.
Right, okay. So we've warmed up, built our vocabulary, trained our ears, and now we're even talking to ourselves. What's next on this 20-minute fluency journey? What else is there?
Okay, get ready to face a topic that many English learners dread.
Uh-oh, what is it?
Grammar.
Oh.
But don't worry, the guide actually takes a really like approachable and manageable approach to it.
Oh, okay, good. Because grammar can definitely feel a little intimidating sometimes.
Yeah.
It just seems like there are so many rules and exceptions to the rules, and it's just a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, I know, right? It can feel really overwhelming. So how does the guide simplify this like often dreaded aspect of language learning?
So the key here is to like not get bogged down in, all the complex rules and terminology.
Right, yeah.
This guide, it emphasizes mastering one small grammar rule each day.
It's more about like building a solid foundation, brick by brick, instead of trying to construct an entire skyscraper overnight.
Okay. Yeah, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So instead of memorizing a whole grammar textbook, I should focus on like one specific concept.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe the present perfect tense or something like that.
Exactly.
And really understand how to use it correctly before moving on.
Yeah, start with the basics. Like simple sentence structure, subject, verb, object.
Right.
And then gradually work your way up to like the more complex tenses.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And this guide, it recommends writing 3 sentences using the grammar rule that you're, focusing on that day.
Okay.
And then like double checking them to make sure they're accurate.
Oh, okay. So if I'm working on the past tense, I might write, I went to the store yesterday, I bought some groceries, I came home and cooked dinner, and then I'd like look at each sentence and make sure I use the past tense correctly.
Exactly. And like, if you're not sure about, whether your sentences are accurate, don't be afraid to like use one of those online grammar checkers.
Right.
Or even ask a teacher or a friend, someone who knows. It's always better to get that clarification early on rather than like keep practicing the wrong way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so we've warmed up, we've built our vocabulary, we've practiced listening and speaking, and we've even tackled some grammar.
And been busy.
I know, right? So what's the final step in this 20-minute routine?
Okay, so this step is often overlooked, but it's super important for, making sure all that hard work we just did actually sticks.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's review and self-test.
Oh.
The guide dedicates this last minute to like making sure everything you've learned is, actually sinking in and not just like disappearing from your brain.
So it's like checking your work before you turn in an assignment.
Exactly. It's like a quick quality control check to, make sure everything's good to go.
I like it. So what does this review process actually look like? What do we do?
It's a pretty simple, like 3-part check.
Okay.
So first, you quickly go over those 5 vocabulary words that you learned earlier,
Yep.
Can you remember what they mean without having to like look back at your notes?
Right. Okay.
And maybe try using them in a few sentences just to like really test your understanding.
Gotcha.
Then you review those grammar sentences that you wrote, make sure they're accurate, that you applied the rule correctly, all that good stuff.
Yep.
And then lastly, do a little speaking check. Like just try to describe your day, in English for maybe like 30 seconds. Just
Right.
focus on, speaking smoothly and putting everything you've practiced into action.
Okay, so even if it's something super basic like I woke up, ate breakfast, went for a walk, the important thing is just to like say it out loud in English and try to speak clearly and confidently.
Exactly. It's just one last chance to like really reinforce those neural pathways and build up that confidence in your spoken English.
Okay, so why is this review step so important? What makes it so crucial?
So you know how like every step in this routine seems to like build upon the previous one?
Yeah, it's all very deliberate and well structured.
Right. Well, this final review is kind of like the glue that holds it all together. It helps to like solidify everything you learned during that 20-minute session.
Okay.
It's like taking a snapshot of your progress and storing it in your long-term memory.
Yeah.
Without this step, you risk losing a lot of those gains you've made,
Yeah, totally. This whole routine sounds incredibly effective, but like, let's be real, staying motivated to learn a language, that's a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Like some days it's just so much easier to just skip practice,
Totally.
So how do we stay on track? Like what does the guide suggest for staying motivated?
That's such a good point. And you know what? This guide actually talks about that too.
Perfect.
It really emphasizes the importance of setting small, achievable goals.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So instead of, aiming for fluency overnight, which is just not realistic,
Right.
break down your goals into like smaller, more manageable chunks.
Okay, yeah.
So tell yourself like, okay, today I'm going to learn 5 new words, or, I'm going to practice speaking for 2 minutes without stopping, things like that.
Yeah, I like that. It's like those little victories along the way can really help keep you going.
Exactly. It's about celebrating those small wins and like to really stay motivated, try to like track your progress visually.
Ooh, okay, how to do that?
You can use a journal, a checklist, even just like a calendar to mark off the days you've completed your 20-minute routine,
Right.
Just like seeing that consistent effort, it's really motivating and it encourages you to, keep going.
I love that. And I also think it's important to remember why you started learning English in the first place,
Right.
whether it's for travel, for work, or even just like personal enrichment. Remembering that why could be super powerful, especially on those days where you feel like giving up.
Yes, 100%. Like, don't be afraid to get creative with your motivation, Find what works for you. Maybe it's watching your favorite TV show in English, listening to English music, or connecting with other language learners online. Make it fun, and you'll be way more likely to stick with it.
Totally. Well, this deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We explored this really like practical and surprisingly engaging 20-minute routine for, achieving English fluency. And like it all comes down to consistency, setting manageable goals, and really focusing on all aspects of language learning, from pronunciation and vocabulary to listening, speaking, and even, yes, a little bit of grammar.
It's all connected.
It really is. And remember, even on those busy days, try to incorporate at least one element of this routine into your schedule.
Yeah, even just a few minutes can make a difference over time.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this episode, here's a thought-provoking question for you, the listener. What one part of this 20-minute routine will you commit to starting this week? Whether it's warming up your mouth, learning 5 new words, or even just like talking to yourself for a few minutes. Take that first step. See where it leads you. And as always, we'd love to hear about your progress. Feel free to share your experiences or any questions you have. Happy learning.